There is no doubt that Gen Z is struggling in the workplace. The question just is how much. And when I open up Google and I type in Gen Z struggles, the first thing that comes up is actually an answer from the problem with Gen Z in the workplace, right? So Gen Z wants to close their laptop at 5 p.m. I get that, you want to take some time and not have problems, with mental health issues and getting emails after hours. What in the US is very, very prominent. In the United States, a lot of people get emails after hours. In Switzerland, you don't get any emails after hours. It's just not something people do. And it's a cultural difference, right? Let's look at the next one. They struggle with mental health. So mental health, I feel like was always a huge, huge thing for Gen Z because they value that. I've seen boomers in the comments and they've always been like, oh, you just got to power through it. And even my grandpa that is now 98 years old that I came to visit, he is also like, oh, you just got to power through it. And, there's brighter days ahead. And that's what, they're talking about, right? So Gen Z wants to be a CEO. And CEO is a loose term now because we'll come back to that. Well, I share a little bit of a backstory about about CEO from a personal life. So Gen Z wants a higher salary. Yeah, we all do because why go to work if you're making $30,000-$40,000 a year and you got to deal with a shitty boss and you're going to be miserable for the most of your life because of you don't have work balance, right? So then Gen Z doesn't want to put up with BS. And neither does anybody else at workplace, but it's called office politics. And that's where you got to play the game to win it. You can't just not do it and just be like, oh, I'm going to, tap out of the workplace. No, you got to play the game because if you play the game, you can win. But if you don't play at all, did you also win? And that might be like, oh, you gotta do it, but you shouldn't do it. It's like, are you going to do it? Yes, no, maybe. So yeah, there's all these pros and cons of playing office politics, and you do it or you don't, and it's kind of up to you to decide if you want to do it, and play the corporate game, or you just don't want to do it and not deal with the BS, right? So now let's get back to Gen Z wants to be a CEO. So CEO is a really, really loose term. Like a CEO of Fortune 500 company is a lot different than when you are self-employed or when you're just you're an entrepreneur and you have 5 to 10 employees. So I was self-employed and I had about 6, 7 employees and I ran a store, right? And so when I make these videos for you guys, this is where it's going to be really interesting because when I make these videos for you guys, I have experienced different phases in my life where I worked in the military, so I know what it means to just take orders from somebody higher without giving any input, and you just do what you do. When they said run a half a mile, you run half a mile. You don't ask questions, you just do it. And sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. And if they tell you to wait outside the rain, but you could stand 2.5 feet over in the cupboard, and they're telling you, nope, you're going to stand right here. You're going to stand right here and get wet. Experience that life. Then I experienced the life of working in the electrical industry where I did electrical engineering, where I got my degree. I've programmed and did frequency transformers for electric motors, and I built and designed smart home systems for bigger companies. I have some of them right here where I designed and did some stuff like that. And then I've said that's enough, and I went into AC contracting where I ran teams of 6 people to help me install, HVAC systems, cold water ceilings, all that kind of stuff. And then, I ran teams and I experienced to do, a little bit of sales, a little bit of marketing, and I tried to do all these things with that company because it was a smaller company. And then I thought, no, that's not it. My parents got divorced, and so then I thought, it's time to head abroad. So I moved to France for 10 months and I experienced a life in France, and I got to see how the French do it. I lived in Lyon, and I said, it's time for me to just do something different and see how the life in France is. So I lived there and I said, that's not what I want to do. So I said, you know what? let me just go to the US and do some aviation training. I always wanted to be like a private pilot. I always wanted to fly. I thought that was pretty cool. So I went over there and I did that, and it was, I have green color blind, so I'm not that good with color. So I kind of, squashed that dream and said, it's probably not what I really want to do anyways, because it's long hours and not that great. So then this dream of going to college keep haunting me, because they always told me, you gotta do something with your life, and you gotta go to college. So I went to college, again, in the United States, and I got a general psychology degree, and did that. And this is how crazy memes are. This is how crazy memes are. Memes travel from the US all over, even to Europe. So I went to college, right, in the United States and got this bachelor's degree. Then I met my wife and I fell deeply, deeply in love. And from Orlando, where I was when I went to UCF, I went to, I moved out to California, baby. And this is where I started my own business. And, with my wife, we partnered up, and we purchased a store in Half Moon Bay, and I had 6 employees, and, did that. And then shortly before COVID, the demographic that we targeted was all remote. And so my business model kind of went out the drain, right? So being a CEO means you got to put in a lot of time and a lot of effort and a lot of your money. Unless you become one of these Fortune 500 CEOs, but I know nothing about that. What I know is how to run a smaller company, and I still do. I still have a real estate, company that I have people that work for me, and I still have virtual assistants that I still hire to this day, and that help me, run my Airbnb, that run my real estate portfolio, and that do stuff for me. So I know what it means. And when I talk to you guys, I can talk from a few different perspectives that I have, because they do not all align with each other. And some people in the comment section do not get that. If you've never been in the military, you do not know what it takes, what it means to get real shitty orders from from your higher ups that you don't understand, but you just got to do them anyways. And then when you own your own business and you have 6 employees, and you tell them and give them clear instructions because of reasons that you thought at the time were really smart, and they don't obey them because they don't think they're valuable and they don't care enough to do it, that's a whole nother thing. And I also get that, because I was also in the same shoes. And so when I talk to you guys, I'm not talking me being a communist or me being anything else. It is me just giving the perspective of a business owner or an employee. And these values do not align. My values as an employee are not the same as an employer, right? And it's different if it's a Fortune, if it's a huge company with thousands of employees, nobody's going to know that you're lacking, right? If you can play the corporate game, then you're good. But if you are in a small company, you slacking off is a sign, and your boss will know, because he's seeing the numbers not increasing while he hired you, right? So he's like, you need to perform, and if you're not performing, you're out. And so there is a difference in values that you gotta showcase. And when people, when I talk to people in the comments section, they say, like, what are your qualifications? I say, I've hired people before. I hired many people before. And when I look at what the values, what the propositions are, they're different. As an employee, I want highest pay, lowest effort, and I want to be out at 5, just like Gen Z. But as a business owner, you're at nighttime thinking, how do I improve revenue? How do I improve, how do I improve my, but the ideas just sometimes doesn't result into what you think, right? So when you implement something as a business owner, not everything is going to result into more business and making their life easier, right? And to communicate that sometimes is a problem. And when you try to, from a high level, try to communicate that and try to facilitate that, it's not always coming over, like, communication is an issue regardless of where you're from in the world, right? Then there's cultural differences, how people want to receive information. and how they want to communicate preferred, their preferred communication ways is a whole nother style. So you got to be super vigilant to to be aware how they want to receive feedback, how they want to, increase your life, how they want to increase your, your work. And so they increase your lifestyle as an owner. And a lot of people don't get that because a lot of people never signed a 10-year, 15-year lease for a building that they were on the hook for. And when you do that and you have this business concept and you don't have business partners, you're personally financially reliable. And when you are personally and financially reliable, it puts skin in the game. It's not like these big companies where they just file for bankruptcy and keep their $30 million salaries. No, when you're a small business owner, mom and pop store, you're on the hook for literally everything. And you're on the hook for buying product. If product gets spoiled because you couldn't sell it, it's coming off of your paycheck. If an employee drops something, it's coming off of your paycheck, right? It's coming out of your salary. And it's great for for the employee that I don't care too much, but it's coming out of the owner's pocket. And if that happens enough, as an owner, you got to protect your wallet. And if I'm telling you guys about, Fortune 500 companies, they don't care if if you drop a $2,000 laptop from NVIDIA and, or Adobe or Microsoft, they'll just send you another one. It's not that they care. The boss is probably like, you dropped it, dang it. But if you do that at my small business where the store only makes about $11,000 in revenue a month, and they drop something expensive or they break something, it's coming out of your bottom line. And at one point, that might be the revenue that you needed to stay profitable or not take a paycheck, those $2,000, $3,000. So it is me talking from different perspectives. So yeah, so I also grew up in Switzerland, and this is some of the lake views that we got today, right? So let's check out some of these gorgeous, gorgeous lake views. I used to swim here all the time after work and just, live the Swiss life. And this is all fresh water, and it's actually fairly cold. So it's chilly, all right, but super pretty. You can jump in and live your life. So when people in the comments say, oh, where where like, oh, businesses got to pay this, business got to do that. Yeah, I get that. And I agree with you guys most of the time from an employee's perspective. But from an employer perspective, if you were ever on the hook for these big, big paychecks, for these big bills, then you can't, you just can't do it. And I feel like this is what Gen Z struggles, that it takes so much for a company to stay profitable. It's insane. And bureaucracy to actually get your store up and running is even crazier. So when you own a small business, there's inspections that come from the city, from the county, that cost thousands of dollars that you don't even know of. So when you go into it, all of a sudden somebody shows up and then they're like, hey, I'm from this department and we're going to inspect this part, or we're going to inspect that part. And, and this to certify, if you want to scale, it needs to be certified by the California thing so you don't cheat the customers. And that costs a few $100s, right? So it's all these things that add up to a whole big thing, right? And when Gen Z says, I want to close my laptop at 5, that is not where it starts or ends for a CEO. A CEO is probably where the day starts. You have meeting between, you have meetings throughout the day, and then you work after 5. If you're a small business owner, if you're a Fortune 500 company, you can probably go with like 10 hours, but you still got to be, working. And as much shit as I give, all these, big companies, big corporations, because the failed attempts, I cut them some slack because some of these ideas are pretty good, but then the implementation just really sucks. Because when you look at the communication style, you can look at your family communication style and see how many issues you and your family have, which is communicating. And don't tell me nothing that, your family doesn't have communication problem. My family has communication problem. Allie's family has communication problems. Everybody that I know has family communication problem because everybody likes to receive and communication a little bit differently. Some people like the sandwich method, positive, negative, positive. Some other people just don't want to hear it at all. Some people think that that you attack their character, right? And this is what I used to think. So when I was working in HVAC and they given me feedback, I thought it was because they hated me. And I thought it was an attack on my character. And so that was when I was young and I didn't understand it. Now, as I'm older, as I'm in my mid 30s, I understand that getting valuable feedback and actually honest feedback is priceless. And it's way less that people give you honest feedback than just some BS and be like, oh, you got to put in, you just got to show more dedication. That is not feedback that is usable, right? That is just something that they say that you can interpret any ways. But if you can get action items like, hey, I want you to be on, in a meeting, if it starts at 11, I want you to be logging in at 11:59, so you're there on time. Those are actionable, quantifiable measures. And, those are the things that can make it or break it, right? And so I have different perspectives, and I'm going to try with you guys to communicate more clearly from which perspective I'm talking about. So when I did that Trump video, I was talking about from a tactical standpoint when I was in the military, right? I wasn't talking about, anything else. And when I'm talking about business owners and stuff like that, I'm talking as a business owner because I can see sometimes what it means to give information and these people, my employees just run with it and do something completely different than I said. And I said, when did I ever say that? And they said, oh, I thought it was this and I thought you meant this. And I said, no, I clearly didn't. But that's just because different cultures, different backgrounds, right? So, and I think like that is a learning journey for my personal self and for you guys watching, that just because somebody gives you like the feedback that's trying to do other things, isn't that, that the values and all that kind of stuff doesn't align. It's just that the communication style isn't really there, right? Let me know in the comments if that makes any sense. The video is getting kind of long right now, so I'm going to end it here about this Gen Z. Kind of went a little bit off topic, but I'm going to pin this video for people to just kind of watch and see, a little bit about my background and what I did. So I'm gonna end the video right now. I'm just gonna have a little bit of views from Lake Zurich, and yeah, this is it. I appreciate you guys so much. Like and subscribe. Let me know what you think about all this, and I'll see you in the next one. This is another view of the lake, and when we zoom in here a little bit, you guys can see that there's people doing on boats, doing all these stuff. And here we can see what kind of fish they have in Lake Zurich. So they got whales, they got a bunch of different fish that you can actually fish around here. So what is also pretty crazy is when you want to get a boat, you can park it right here. And I looked once a few years ago, like when I still lived here, like 10 years ago, and I think that the wait time was about 20 years for you to actually get a spot right here because they're so limited. It is like prime real estate and you can't get a spot. It's absolutely crazy. So if you want to have a boat in Lake Zurich, almost impossible.